We'll go ahead and get started. So good morning, everybody. I am so glad you're able to make it with us today. We're going to be talking about customer surveys, and we're going to do a couple of different things. The first thing we're going to do is just go over some basics about the customer survey and why it's important. And then Kassan Matson has joined us today, and she is going to take us through an example of a customer survey that her program uses. Hopefully, Doug will be able to jump on the call because he also is going to present a different type of survey. They're very different from each other, but they're both excellent in what they're trying to accomplish. So in order for us to get going, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you all. And can you guys right now, are you able to see my screen? It should have that colorful Community Action Agency customer survey. Can you guys see that? Somebody come off mute here real quick and let me know if you can see that.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm so nervous about it because I did a whole onboarding session where I forgot to share my screen, and for 90 minutes, people just listened to me talk. It was bizarre. Lindsay, I am going to ask you to keep an eye on the chat for me. Let me know if there's any questions that come up, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So customer surveys it took me a long time to come through the process where I learned to appreciate a customer survey for all of the information that we're able to get from them. So when we talk about customer surveys, some of the questions that come up is like, it just feels like there is so much that we have to do. And it just seems like it's just one more box that we need to check. And I'm hoping today we can go through customer surveys, talk about why they're important, and that they're not just another box that we need to check of things that we need to do. So why should we even care about customer surveys? Well, number one, as we're all working on our organizational standards, they tell us they're important. There are 4 organizational standards for both public and private agencies that require us to demonstrate or just show how we've met the maximum feasible participation. And beyond these requirements, consumer input and involvement is critically important because it directly affects our ability for our customers to access and use our services. And since its foundation, the community action approach really has emphasized local priorities and maximum feasible participation, a requirement that individuals from communities served be represented in the decision-making body of the agency. In addition, it's central to the continuous improvement and services of ROMA. This framework that our agencies are required to operate under. So customer satisfaction data is a key component of the needs assessment and the strategic planning process to best inform the delivery of services. And as this feedback is utilized and the customer focus is implemented within your agency, individuals and families are then instilled with the sense of empowerment, ultimately resulting in more positive outcomes. Also, as I just mentioned, ROMA says, hey, we can't properly plan without looking at our customer surveys. Peter Drucker asks us, what does the customer want? He asked us to ask this question of ourselves, and he answered that question for us by saying, what satisfies their needs, wants, and aspirations is so complicated that it can only be answered by the customers themselves. So customer satisfaction is a highly personal assessment, strongly affected by customer expectations. It's influenced by contact with the service provider and our personal outcomes. And whether customer expectations are confirmed or not, It determines their level of satisfaction, and expectations generally relate to three different customer needs. This will meet their security, their need to feel safe, their esteem, their need to feel empowered, and justice. So as we look at Roma and we look at how we begin to plan, we want to know, what is our customer input? It is amazingly good qualitative data for our needs assessments, and it informs or identifies the needs of the community on the individual level. And remember, the last point on the slide is that their needs and their experiences are continuously changing over time. And so it's really helpful for us to be able to collect data to find out what's working, what isn't working, what we need to strengthen, and what we need to abandon. And finally, we care about customer service, or customer survey, excuse me, because good business practices tell us it's important. Customer satisfaction not only drives outcome, but it also impacts our funding and ultimately the existence of our agency. Outcomes must be produced to remain sustainable and to achieve our purpose in community action. So in addition to that, it's not just simply outcomes that we're looking at, but also the customer satisfaction with the outcome. And there are three elements that drive customer satisfaction. So satisfaction with the service provided, their experience of what it was like working with the agency and the people that they worked with, and their own personal satisfaction with the outcome. So generally, creating a positive culture for customer satisfaction begins with some of our customer basics. A community action agency first has to determine who our customers are. Once we know who they are, we need to know that the people that are accessing services, community partners, funders, and even staff can all be considered customer. So in this particular one, never ever confuse your primary customer and forget about your second customer, your secondary customers as well. And those secondary customers could and should include your own teammates, making sure that the culture of your employee staff is positive and engages our clients. So what do we think about? So what determines the quality or the factors of the services? And when we think about services or how we engage with our customers, there's a couple of things that we might want to talk about. So when we look at quality, our timeliness and our convenience are things that are really important. Does it take somebody 3 weeks before they can finish an intake and actually start beginning services? Or are our processes set up to make it quick, to make it easy? Are we easy to find? Do we make it difficult for clients to find us? Do we offer them personal attention, or do they only have to look at a screen to fill out online portals? Is there any type of face-to-face engagement that we offer that is a positive towards the client? Does it help us to build our rapport? Now, in the era of COVID, that got a little bit more challenging, right? But we've all gotten better at being able to either FaceTime or Zoom or Google Meet our clients if we're not able to meet with them face to face. How about your reliability or your dependability? Those things are super important too, because our customers and our community has to trust that our agency is going to do what we said we're going to do. Are we dependable, or are we flaking out on people? Are we the ones that are canceling our appointments? Are we the ones that don't have regular office hours? We want to talk about our employees. Are they well trained? Are they professional? Are they relatable? And on that, do our client or do our staff members who are client facing exude that level of empathy, to be understanding, to not be judgmental as people move in and out of our services? And how responsive are we? Again, this goes back to our timeliness and our convenience. Are we responsive? If someone is reaching out to us on our Facebook page and we don't reach out, we don't follow back up with them on either Facebook Messenger or a phone call or an email or a text, are we being responsive to their needs? And what about our assurance, our availability? Again, are we there to make sure that what we're doing is available to all people? Are we inclusive? Are we using language that makes everybody feel like they belong and that they matter? And our availability, this is much different during COVID right now, right, than it used to be before then. We could always be available face to face. Well, many of us have gone into appointment only or virtual appointments only or over the phone. Sometimes that helps our availability, sometimes it harms. And sometimes we're not going to know what the client feels about our availability until we ask them. And then we want to take a look at also our customer service includes our physical faculties. It completes our equipment, our appearance. Do we come across as being approachable? Are our physical buildings, as our offices, if they're coming into our office, are they welcoming? Or does it look like just another office building where it's cold and sterile? Are we offering good up-to-date equipment? Do we have good, strong Wi-Fi services for those families who might need that? So these are all basics of what customer service looks like. And when we're attending to those things to make sure that we're building good rapport and good relationship, we start seeing better outcomes. So does anybody have any questions before we move on about why customer surveys are important? Okay, so what we'll do next is we're going to go into designing our surveys. There is not a one size fits all for any agency. How we design our customer surveys really depends on several different things. First of all, we really want to make sure that honesty, that we're able to allow our customers to be honest with us. That's a concern when it comes to collecting customer satisfaction data. To mitigate some of those concerns and to encourage honesty, it's really a good idea to not wait too long after the program or the interaction ends before gathering the data. Surveys or comment cards should be able to be completed anonymously by the respondent with adequate time to think about their answers. In addition to, we want to make sure that we're not using leading questions or language that may demean the respondent. Overall, respondents are more likely to tell the truth and be honest with us if they have an invested connection with our agency. Therefore, repeat customers or those who are invested in a long-term program can really provide some great feedback. So when we're looking at our surveys, there are a couple of things that you want to think about. And there's a list here. I've already talked about being able to preserve customer anonymity. I can't ever say that word. Make sure that they are anonymous and that they feel safe in being able to be honest with you. Are we making the surveys easy for them to access? Is it a postcard that we send off? Is it a paper copy that they have to mail back? If they have to mail it back to us, are we including a self-addressed stamped envelope for them to be able to drop it in the mail easily? Are we providing links to different types of surveys that has the ability for them to use Wi-Fi or their data on their phone to be able to complete that survey? You're going to see an example of a survey today that is really in depth and really talks about some very specific information, sometimes it's helpful to link that survey to a follow-up group, right? It's like, hey, you answered this survey. We'd love to have a roundtable discussion with you to tell us more if that's an option. Making sure that we vary our questions is really important too. For those of us that want to have a very simple, no more than 5 question survey, we just want to get that out. We want to be really thoughtful about those questions. Are we really asking what we need to know? If we have a limited, very small survey, sometimes we just can use a linear rating scale on, hey, how does this work? What do you think of this on a scale of 1 to 5? Would you recommend us to your friends on a scale of 1 to 5? Would you feel comfortable with your outcome? Do you feel more positive? With medium-sized surveys or deeper intensive surveys, you can ask a lot more open-ended questions, right? That'll give you some narrative. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for and what you want to track and what you're trying to find out. If it is customer satisfaction, I think that simple, like a linear scale is probably just fine. If you're looking for qualitative or language data and stories, then you're going to want to be putting your open-ended questions in there. Again, using multiple methods to gather your feedback. Not everybody is created equal in their ability to access technology. So do we have different ways for them to be able to do that? Making sure that surveys are accessible to our clients, right? Take it to them, email it to them, have them take it with them, have them take the link, give them the opportunity to make it easy for them to do. Anytime that we put a barrier in front of somebody, you're just reducing your response rate. All right, so now we've collected our data, right? We've got all these surveys that have come in. What are we supposed to do with it now? Once data is collected, it remains simply just raw facts. Data only becomes information for decision making and program improvement once it's been analyzed in some fashion. So data analysis is a continuous cycle that includes not only just collection and analysis, but turning that information derived from analysis into insight and into action. And there are a few simple data analysis techniques that can be used with customer satisfaction data, such as counting, comparing, asking questions, examining trends. And we can do that in a couple of different ways, right? So some of the questions that we're going to want to know are, well, did we get better at some of that response? Did we see any improvements? Were there differences in how our services were delivered, either within a different location or in different methodologies? Did we get different responses from those people who received a paper survey versus responses from people that we received through virtual or digital? You could draft a list of these questions to ask of the data that's been collected. And some of these sample questions are listed here right now, but it's important to consider the volume of responses in certain categories, right? So from different locations or within various demographics, to ensure that we're getting a good representation helps us prioritize our issues. For example, outreach offices in different locations could have different satisfaction ratings that would help us to identify where we need to focus our energy for improvement or replication. It can be compared in various ways to help answer some of our questions, like, what if we layered our demographics with program satisfaction? An agency could then determine if there's some sort of unconscious bias that's happening within our agency. Are we seeing a huge gap in responses from females between the ages of 18 and 25 who received paper applications? There are some good questions that we could be asking ourselves. about that. And furthermore, program satisfaction can be compared by location to really identify if the agency is accessible, if our facilities are are they easy to be found? Do we have plenty of parking? Are we on the bus route? We want to make sure if we can look at these questions to see if there are some areas of our agency that are more welcoming than others to see what is working well. And then again, we want to start asking other questions. One of these techniques of analyzing our data is to examine our trends. Our agency is going to want to look at our data from 3, 5, or 10 years over time to see if the data is the same across these years. This speaks to the importance of being thoughtful of the data that is being collected and not changing your surveys too often unless absolutely necessary. When we start looking at trends, your agency can start asking a couple of questions such as, well, what happened over time? What events or situations may have impacted these trends? We can guess that our data is going to look different before COVID as opposed to during COVID, as opposed to what happened 3 years later. Are there events or situations that we responded to that are impacted in our survey results? And what does that mean for us moving forward? And once we get that, our data is trended, the agency can start asking questions like, do we need to implement a quality improvement committee? This committee could be tasked with ensuring data is collected and analyzed. And as such, it would be important to have at least one member of the customer satisfaction committee that has really good analytical strengths. Other key members could include program managers, frontline staff, human resources staff, Roma trainers, Roma implementers. And the responsibilities of these committees can include things such as reviewing the data, soliciting feedback on improvements, coordinating with HR on training, making recommendations. And once, you can start looking at this once you start having this data in front of you. And once a structure and technique for data analysis is in place, you need to share your data, right? An internal reporting process could be outlined by the Quality Improvement Committee to stay accountable and ensuring that we're taking our results seriously. So what does that look like? Hey, it could look like monthly discussions. It could talk about when we are going to be reporting this. Once we look at these things and once we've done the work, who are we going to tell? Scoreboards are really recommended and are important to organize and show data changes in data over time. This data can be organized by initial intake and interactions. It could happen with open-ended questions. But it shouldn't just be utilized for a quality improvement committee if that is what we choose to do. Customer satisfaction data and information should be shared throughout the agency's annual report, through our grant applications, and within our community members and our legislatures. In addition, the information can be used during your strategic planning, our program recruitment, and when we're building our partnerships. So in summary, customer satisfaction goes beyond gathering feedback and distributing comment cards, right? We can say, yeah, we checked the box, we did that, we're required to do it. But what we're suggesting is building a culture and a system of customer satisfaction within your community action agency that can determine how well customers are accessing and actually receiving our services. We're using it to boost awareness and the reputation in our community. And yes, you're meeting important organizational standard requirements, but are we being able to use this data to, most importantly, improve customer outcome? So it's really suggested that agencies adapt what is shared through this guide and associated resources and through this conversation that we're having to really start building a culture of customer satisfaction in your own agency. Build a system, collect that data, analyze that data, and then use that data for agency-wide improvement. So that is customer surveys at the very beginning in a nutshell. We are going to be going through some as I look at the chat right here. Yeah, we're going to go through a customer survey example. And I want to introduce you to, and Joe Coyne, I'm going to put you on the spot here really quick. Joe Coyne is with us from Community Builders Incorporated, and they do a lot of these customer surveys. And we'll hook up with him later, see if he has anything that he wants to add. But in the meantime, I really want to introduce you to a dear, dear friend of mine. Kassan Matson is a former colleague at the Community Action Agency that I worked at for a long time. She is the co-director of Compass Center for Families, and she is the director of programming. One of her babies is a program specific to Compass Center for Families that works very closely and uses CSBG funding on occasion, but really depends heavily on our community partnerships and stakeholder partnerships. So Kassan, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to ask you to share, well, I'll just let you do what it is that Kassan does best. Everybody, welcome, Kassan.
Thanks, guys. Like Susan said, I'm Kassan Matson, Director of Programming at Compass Center for Families. I'm the kind of person, if you have any questions, just throw them up in the chat. Feel free to interrupt, ask any questions. I thought a lot about this presentation, and I'm going to try to make it tangible by sharing an example from our agency and talking about how we use the data that is collected. And I hope that will be helpful for you. Like I said, at Compass Center for Families, we have 5 programs. We survey in all of the programs, but the program I am going to talk to you the most about today, it is my baby. It's the Parent Liaison Program in Sheridan School District number 2. We have a parent liaison who works at each of the 5 elementary schools and a full-time liaison at the junior high school. The mission of the Parent Liaison Program is to build engagement between parents and schools, because when parents and schools are engaged together and focused on the success of the child, those kids do a lot better. Just for a little background information. So we use surveys at the end of the year, and I'm going to share that survey with you in a minute. One of them, I see us having 2 customers when we survey. Like I said, the mission of the program is building engagement between parents and educators. Liaisons work to take things off the plate of educators to support them, and they work to support parents in their engagement with the school, access to resources at the school, access to parent education, or really a lot of support and access to resources and support in our community in conjunction with all of our community partners. So at the end of the year, we survey all staff at all schools that a parent liaison works in, because we want to know how is the program working in that school? How is that liaison doing in their role? What are the outcomes that the staff is seeing from the work of the parent liaison program? But then we also survey all families that we work with, and we have narrowed that to all families who've worked with their parent liaison 3 or more times. And so because we want to hear, how is our customer service? What is the impact of the work? What is the impact we're having on families? How are we doing? How is the liaison doing their role? So I'm going to share with you. Can I screen share, Susan? Okay, I'm going to screen.
Yes, ma'am, you can.
Okay, I'm going to share with you our survey just so you can get a feel for some of the questions. Let's see if I can do this. An application. Maybe I'm going to share this with you guys. Susan, I might email this to you to share, because I'm not having the option to share a tab. So that means I can't share. So
okay, go ahead and send it to me and I will pop it up for you.
Okay, hang on. Thank you.
Now, as she's going through this, this is an example of a survey that's done at the end of the program year, right? She mentioned that. But there are other times that you can do customer surveys too. And those customer surveys can be at the end of a service, can be a monthly survey, it could be quarterly that you send out. Your end of service surveys that people tend to send out tend to be your shorter surveys, right? These are exit surveys, or hey, how was your example here? I am going to go in and I have got it, Kasan. Let
Thank
me.
you. And I love that you mentioned that, Susan, because in our other programming, like let's say our parent enrichment program, every time a parent finishes a parent enrichment or education class, we have them survey. And we know to get good outcomes in that survey, we just hand out a paper survey at the end of the class that they fill out before they leave and hand it in. And then we go look at that data. That's probably the best survey results we get. People don't have a lot of option to not do the survey. So, but then in other surveys, we will email the link. You know, we really find now that we get our best returns on surveys if you send out the text link. So you can email the link or text the link. And as so many people have smartphones, we get a lot of returns on that. So if you could just roll up on Susan, I'd like to give you guys a flavor of some of the questions we're asking. We want to know, how did you hear about a parent liaison? And I'm not going to read this to you because you can kind of read as we're going on. How long have you worked with your parent liaison? We want to know, in the schools, are you working with more than one child? And what school do they attend? Why that information is important to us, it helps us know what issues do some schools face that maybe other schools don't don't experience as often, but also that tells me a lot about the work of each of my liaisons. Why I think that's important, I'm just going to tell you, I would say one of the first reasons why we do surveys is, are we doing our job, right? And so we are able to see, are we meeting the identified outcomes of our program when we look at these surveys? Our clients, which in this case will be parents and teachers, are they satisfied with the program? Susan talked a lot about customer satisfaction, but myself as a program manager, I also want to know, how are my liaisons delivering the work to clients? It gives us insight into their work. And it also is a great tool if there's a concern. It gives you information to share with your staff to work on improving or enhancing those skills. What I find most importantly, though, is it gives a lot of really positive feedback. And it's really motivating for my parent liaisons at the end of the year when they see the feedback directly from parents and directly from school staff about the positive impact their services make on families and children in our community. So if you keep rolling up, Susan, we talk about, we want to know what led to you working with your parent liaison. In our other programs, we ask that question in all of them. What led to you wanting to take a parenting education class? What led to participating in any one of our programs? Because we want to know what's going on in that family's life that they sought out the service. A big piece of why I love surveys is because I want the story behind the work that we are doing. The qualitative, tangible heart work that we are doing, which the data you collect at intake, it doesn't gather that. So this is a question that begins asking the story of our clients. Keep rolling, Susan. How has your parent liaison supported you and your child? And these are all of the options from within the role. If you continue. If they referred you to a program or a service or community resource, how often were those referrals helpful? If so, we love for them to write down what referrals did they access in the community. That gives us a lot of information about what is helpful for them, how is it working.
And then Kasan, Kassan, I'm just going to interrupt for just a second
No,
because
feel free.
the parent liaisons know exactly what services they've already provided, right? So there's a
Yep.
separate data piece that's already
Yep.
going on that they can use to now compare. So if her data is telling her, look, we made 48 referrals to the food pantry, and it comes back and says, you know what, that food pantry referral was poor in the customer's perspective, that gives them some comparison data to tell them about the program and how to move forward.
Absolutely. And we can just kind of roll through a few more questions. We don't have to go them all. I just go through them all. I wanted you to get a feel for this. This is an important question. Did working with your liaison increase your involvement with your child's education? We asked that because that is directly linked to the mission of our work. What changes have you seen in your child? So these kind of questions go on, but we're gathering the story. If you roll, this is one we ask in every program. Are you satisfied and would you recommend? How could your liaison reach out to more parents? We want to see how can we optimize the program. And I just said, would you recommend? But then at the end, we ask, please describe how your parent liaison has helped you and your family, and how could they do better? This is where we get the stories that provide us with quotes for our annual report. So I'm going to kind of just go into a few more a few more points about how we use the information. I was saying, are we doing our job, right? You can see in looking at this information, it gives us a lot of feedback directly from our customers, which in this case would be teachers or parents, that's saying, yes, I think you did a great job. This is what you referred me to. This is what my family was facing. These referrals were helpful. This one was not. It really helps ensure that the work that we're doing is meeting the need of our customers. Whether it's resource related, support related, or is it related on the teacher side? Are the liaisons actually making an impact in engagement? Is it improving communication? Is it improving relationship with the school? So are we doing our job? The next area where I really sit down and really scrub through our data and look at it is, how can we improve? If you are not thinking about how you can improve your programming on an annual basis, you're probably not doing a very good job. I say that because guess what? Before, I've been in roles where I wasn't doing a good job. And in this role, working with parent liaison, I learned to appreciate client data so much and feedback. When you sit down, gather the data, and sit down with a couple trusted coworkers, whoever that would be, who really are maybe strategic in their thinking about program goals, have good analysis skills, look at what are you gleaning from this information? Where are you seeing, what are ways that we can improve? I'm going to give you an example of that, a couple of examples from our programming. One year we were seeing in the teacher and parent questions, things like, the teachers are saying, I'm not really sure how to reach my parent liaison. I'm not really sure exactly what she does. This was earlier on in the program, and similar questions from the parents. And I was like, whoa, because in my mind as a manager, I thought we were killing that. Apparently we were not. And so during our annual strategic planning session with the team, we really identified that we needed to improve marketing to teachers and improve marketing to parents. So we improved upon our existing marketing materials. We reached out to other programs. We have a couple of programs we're affiliated with Montana, and said, what are you doing that's working? Stole some ideas. We increased the interval of our marketing material. And then our team also enhanced strategies of direct contact with teachers. So from this feedback, we expanded marketing at a program level, improved communication skills at a direct level. And the next year, we did not have the questioning about our program. Another strategy that came from our surveys that improved the work that we did is, we knew, especially during COVID, that mental health was not good. And we looked at the year of COVID, we really looked at our data, and our mental health referrals were low. We were looking at the previous years, and we were like, we know this is a thing, and I think we're not doing it that well. So we came together as a team and we were like, how are we doing? And we talked about, what is it like when you make a mental health referral? And in our team, we found that some people felt kind of uncomfortable with it. So we really worked at as a team on how do we build training and skill to improve those conversation. We practice those conversations, but then we also reached out to our community partners, uh, all of our therapists to say, hey, maybe part of it is maybe we're not making good referrals. And so we reached out to all of our mental health providers in our community and we started asking them questions like, do you have a wait list? What are your specialty areas? What insurances do you take? And we review that list every single year. And so now when we have a family who's looking for mental health referrals, we are able to provide them with a comprehensive, updated list that doesn't create more work for them. We felt like maybe our skills, our previous skills and our referrals were just creating another barrier for families who needed to seek help. And when we looked at our data, improved that, we reduced barriers for families. And then finally, as a director of programming, I think this is something that I have uh, gained to appreciate the most from surveys. How do we share the work that we're doing with others? For me, that is for the continuation of our programming, for the expansion of our programming, and certainly for obtaining an expansion of funding. I mean, I don't know if you guys need money to do the work that you do, but I sure do. And I would like a lot more of it. So this is a part I try to do very, very well. Um, so when we, like I said, like you all, you gather demographics at intake, and we gather the numbers of families and the referrals we make. Data tells a story, but guess what? It's boring. I mean, like, unless you're a data nerd and you're excited by numbers, I'm not. I'm like, oh, I see these numbers are important, but they're real lame. And so to me, when I am looking at our surveys and the questions we're asking in our surveys, I want the story, right? We know the work we do is important. You feel it in your heart. You connect with families. You often work with families who are the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable in your community. But then you realize, guess what? Most people in our community don't even know a poor person, or it's not in their realm of experience, and so they're not necessarily thinking, what might it be like to be very low income and or homeless or being food secure in our community. The majority of people are thinking about getting their kids to soccer and going to work and what's for dinner, right? So when we gather great qualitative information in our story, in our surveys, we are able to put the story to our numbers, which makes our work very, very powerful. So what I would do is, how I share this information is many ways. I sit down and I share, like I said, all of the stories and all of the referrals with my direct staff so they understand this is how you're doing in your role. I want you to know we use it in supervision and skill building. And then we take the data and I share it with my other customers, the school teams. Of course, I sort the data, but every single year I provide a parent liaison annual report and one for each specific school to each principal, counselor, leadership team, and then they share it out with their schools. So they can say, you know, teachers are busy in their work, right? But when they see that report, they're like, oh my gosh, this is how many parents the parent liaison worked with, and this is how many homeless families we have, and this is all the referrals we made for kids. These are kids that I teach in my school. Suddenly teachers are like, wow, this is a really important program, which we need them to feel. So my program continues in my community. And then next, I look at the information. I then share that information. I present to the school board every single year. The school board is one of our big supporters, one of our biggest stakeholders. At that school board presentation, well, one, I support to the report to the school board independently, but I pull out data from our surveys that the school board would be really interested in hearing. Of course, I'm like, we serve this many families, this many kids, this many referrals. 99 people would recommend the program. They're satisfied. But what I tell the school board is, do you know that of all of the families who completed our surveys, over 75% of them report that they then have better engagement with the schools. They participate in their child's education more, they're in more communication with the school. So I'm pulling out this little fact that they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. These are at-risk families. And so then I also report to our stakeholders. These are the people that give us the money. They want to know we value the money, we use it well, it's an investment, and this is the return on your investment. So of course I share the annual report, but I have a presentation. I say, this is our data, but I have each of my liaisons collect every single month a story that they think is a positive, like a story where they really made impact with a family. We collect them all year, and at the end of the year before this presentation, we refine it, and a couple of the liaisons begin to share those stories. And so if we did not do surveys, we would not have the stories to tell about our work. And it's the stories along with the data that is the most impactful. The final thing is,
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just saying, it was so good.
The final thing I just wanted to say is this, is that sometimes I think people are kind of like, when I first started, and I know we send, I don't know, let's say we worked with 303 or more families. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we only got like 120 surveys back. I thought that was bad, right? Because I'd never done it. And when I worked with other people, like, holy cow, that's amazing. That's a great return. And so know that an average return rate is 10 to 30%. We improved that because we eventually started using a tiny bit of our funding. And by tiny, I mean $5 $50 gift cards, let's say. And at the end, we say, if you would like to be entered into a drawing, you know, complete the survey, put your name in here, and we draw for a gift card. So we incentivize, and that did improve our returns. Emailing it along with the text link has really, we get a lot more returns that way, and incentivizing it. So that's kind of what we do in the parent liaison. And I think that's what Susan wanted me to share with you, and I'm happy to do it. Thank you for having me, and I'd answer any questions you guys would maybe have.
You know what? I'm going to give them a chance to ask some questions in just a second. But Doug was able, because of miscommunication from me, Doug was able to now join us. This is another example of a customer survey that is very different than the one Kassan just talked about. And Doug, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the lateness. Fremont County, we have a very high success rate with our customer surveys. They're real short. They're real simple. We just started them. We just implemented them. One of the things with the short and simple format is that it's easy to get a higher return rate from people. And we do it right there when the service is taking place. Essentially, I don't know how to share my screen here to show you what I'm looking at.
At the bottom of your screen, there should be a share screen.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. You should see how many devices I have hooked up to this thing. Let's look at... We'll figure it out. Oh, man. Okay. Sorry about the... Oh. Well, we'll see. They gave me all kinds of warnings. Here we go. Okay. I don't know if you can see it. Can everybody see our little survey there? Okay.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you, Doug.
So essentially, as you can see, there's three, it's a quick checkbox and a comment or feedback. I loved your service. My experience was okay. My experience was poor. You could do better if. Oftentimes, not only do we get what we could do better, But we get the thank yous and we get all kinds of other comments in that quick comment section that are so valuable to what we do here in Fremont County and the programming that we provide. What makes this important is one, we can get it's quick, fast, and it's easy. And we had to start somewhere. We weren't getting a lot of quality feedback. And so we had to look at what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. And having something large and comprehensive is something we can build towards, something that can give us a little bit more both qualitative and quantitative data to go analyze and to do for funding. But we had to start somewhere, and this is where we chose to start. Our board put this together, and just gaining that feedback from our participants has not only helped bolster what we do as an organization, but to solicit funds as well as to appease our stakeholders, whether that's the state, whether that's our tripartite board, or whether that's people who are donating funds to our organizations. We are a public entity as opposed to a private entity. So we have sub-grantees that administer this out to the clients. And, you know, with the majority of our clients, we have a lot of turnaround with a lot of clients. And therefore, getting this feedback became very difficult in the very beginning to garnish, ultimately with Fidelity through our sub-grantees, because people were coming in, they were getting the funds, they were getting what they need, and once they got what they need, they were gone, right? They didn't need it anymore. And it made it difficult to get a high rate of return, other than once in a while we'd get thank you notes. Therefore, we made this part of the applicant's packet, and they fill it out before they leave the organization. This is what we're doing, this is what we can do better, and giving us the feedback we need to grow as an organization and to build a better mousetrap, so to speak, against poverty.
Doug, so you do this, and this is the only question that you guys are asking at this particular point. What do you do with this information internally then? Do you guys meet on this on a regular basis, quarterly, or what's your process for talking about this?
So quarterly, we get the organizations to bring it back to us, or to send us the data, and we compile it quarterly. So here at the end of December, organizations will be sending all of the feedback that they've received from their clients. I don't have specific numbers. If you're a data cruncher, I love data. So I absolutely love to sit around and analyze data and utilize it. And I think it makes our organization better, but that's because I love data, right? And so as this comes in, first I'll take it and I'll analyze what we have going on. I'll bounce off the heads of our organizations or our sub-grantees, what they're seeing, what they have going on. And then I start essentially making notes to take to my board. I send it out in a pre-board packet. It's also a part of my quarterlies to the state of Wyoming for our CSBG grant funding. And the state enjoys seeing that data coming in on the quarterly as well. And then we go over it as a board and we change and adapt our strategic plan. You know, if we're missing the mark, we're missing the mark, and we need to know that, and we need to know ways that we can do that. I think it's a high quality way of getting, you know, that low income sector's input really on a high level, and getting people who are impoverished to put in their opinions, because we often do have different ways to skin the cat, so to speak, and what's important to them and what they're seeing and what they believe is not only helpful to them, but helping them get out of their current uncomfortable situations, really getting that feedback so that we can change and adapt our organization and grow together. It helps us to make it really helps us to hit the target. So for example, if education is a big deal, and our CNA tells us that it's a big deal, and the biggest thing to do in Fremont County is educate people. If somebody's biggest deal isn't education and it's their lights or this, that, and the other, okay, cool. We both want the end goal of being more educated and being able to apply that education. Here's what they're seeing. Here's what we're seeing. And it just opens up a dialogue that we're not typically having on a day-to-day basis, and allows us to take that data, analyze it, and adjust our programming and adjust our people to their strengths and help suit the community in a much better way.
Thank you. Let's open it up, because we are coming up on, 1 minute before the end of the hour. And I just wanted to open this up for questions for Kassan or Doug or myself. We have Heather from the state is here. Joe, this is your opportunity to kick in any comments that you might have about your experience in customer and client surveys. I'm going to open it up.
So let me just quickly say, I love this conversation. I think it's awesome the way that you guys are using surveys. From my perspective, as we do a lot of needs assessments, this fits beautifully. I would encourage you guys to form some sort of a working group and come up with some standardized ways to approach this topic. Nice job. Great presentations, you guys.
Thank you, Joe. That's a great idea. We can ask about on that one. Hey, speaking of how important surveys are, there's a link in the chat, you guys. I need to hear from you about how these work. If you want to put in some ideas of, if you're open to sitting on a working group, if you want to learn more about in-depth data, there are some Region 8 trainings that are going to be coming up this summer. That's going to take deep high-level macro views of data that I will let you guys know about. Send your surveys to me. I would love to see them. I will share them with your permission. Kassan and Doug, can I share your guys' surveys? Would that be okay? Okay. Any other questions that you might have or something that you want to address? Please take my survey, please. All right, not hearing anything. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Thank you all so much. This recording.
Can I interject real quick? One last thing.
Oh, yeah.
So one of the things that I thrive on as an administrator is turning decades into hours or days. And these surveys and that data allows you to gain decades of knowledge without all the mistakes that you might make, and condense it into hours or days of active within your community. So utilizing surveys, it isn't something that I just have my staff to do, and the people in our community to do just so that I can report to the state, or so the federal government goes, oh, yay, look at Fremont County, kudos to them. I don't know if they look at that. What I care about is condensing decades worth of time and communication, and condensing that into our surveys so that we can have that taking place immediately, so that I can make decisions within hours or days that is necessary to change, adapt, and help the people.
Thank you. Good point. And I think, Kassan, you'd say the same thing. What you guys find as you take through and deep dives into your data and your analysis of that data are critically important to why the Parent Liaison Program is a hugely successful program, because we learn, or they learn from what their customers are telling them. Thank you.
And sharing that with your partners, who then learn to value the work that they're doing, because without the data and without the stories, they don't know.
Yeah, data-driven, client-centered services. That's what we want to be thinking about. Thank you all so very, very much. This recording can be found on our YouTube channel. Take the survey. The link is in the chat. Appreciate you all. Thank you. Bye-bye.